Hi, it's Lee, and welcome to the Tech Economist. Now, I realise the economy is somewhat delicate right now, to put it lightly. There's a real chance that all these interest rate hikes the reserve banks are doing are going too far and going to have dire consequences, where a lot more people lose their jobs, houses, and really can't afford new cars. I'm not trying to ignore any of this, but no one knows how this will land. We have to hope they didn't down-tune the economy too much, that it means the economies really start to struggle. At the same time, in order to stop the inflation or reduce it to the levels they're aiming, they likely need to break parts of the economy. As to how much is another question. And like I said, they have to make sure they don't go too far. Or can perhaps at least hold out until other global pressures relieve the situation, like war. I think it may even sound like the Fed are starting to realise this now, and actually don't want to totally destroy the economy. But it's hard to assess the future damage of their actions. Anyway, I'm not putting my head in the sand and ignoring all these. We simply don't know the extent as to which this will leave us all. But that may be the scare, that Tesla possibly end up struggling to sell all the cars they make, because so many people can no longer afford one, and consumer confidence is at lows. So how about we explore this scenario? So what are we ultimately talking about here? Tesla will lose demand, and how do you fix that? You either reduce supply or reduce prices. Pretty much the entire auto industry has to do the former, whereas Tesla can do the latter. Again, Tesla have their margin buffer, and if they reduce prices, they end up becoming relatively lower cost to what the competition is offering, thus likely taking orders from them rather than reducing their own supply. But this is Elon, who hopefully is as smart as we all think and has thought this through already, or perhaps a long time ago, and has contingencies. The margins only reduce if the costs of the goods sold remains the same. But what if Tesla can get their costs down, along with the prices of the cars? What if Tesla can offer low-cost variants during the down market in order to hold up demand and profit? I've been thinking more about this revamped Model 3 and reading all your comments in regards to the recent video I made about it. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard people in the past say that the Model 2 or low-cost Tesla or even $25,000 Tesla is going to be the Model 3. Elon also recently said he knows how to build electric cars for about half the price of the Model 3, and some of you put all this together and think that this lower cost Tesla will be this new Model 3. Personally, I think we need some more extreme manufacturing and design changes to get to a platform of that lower cost. I'm thinking more like a compact version of the Cybertruck, although I'm more than happy to be wrong. I mean, even we know Tesla can drop the cost of a Model 3 dramatically with changes like structural battery pack, front and rear castings, or moving from 12 volts to 48 volts and reducing the required cabling. And it sounds like there are a plethora of other things that can be changed too. This would reduce costs and increase production speed, and reduce the production space required. All things we like to hear. We know this is possible, and will just require the lines being down for possibly a few months, whilst they're upgraded, along with some additional gigapresses. However, once ramped up, then we should see a low-cost Model 3. I would say it likely that the Model 3 already costs under $30,000 in Shanghai, possibly even around $28,000 to produce. And that is with the current exchange rate, where the dollar is stronger than it used to be. However, China also offers low-cost advantages. But we're talking about new manufacturing techniques that are more automated. And again, remember, this is with a strong dollar. So I'm going to speculate that Tesla could get a Model 3 down to perhaps $25,000, which would mean they can sell them for $35,000 and nearly get 30% gross margin, possibly even lower cost again in Shanghai, as they're already selling there for $38,000. Except then there is likely the chance that Fremont versions will get a further $7,500 off with tax credits, which would effectively make them $27,500 to the consumer for a brand new Tesla. Of course, that's a price with 30% margin. I don't think Tesla would need to go that low, even in this economy. The Shanghai Model 3 factory could end up having a capacity in excess of 1 million units a year. The Model Y factory capacity is 750,000 and is a smaller factory, making a bigger car and doesn't have front castings. Sounds hard to believe, but at the same time, sounds totally possible. It's great Tesla can manufacture more cars, but remember, the entire EV industry has this massive bottleneck called battery supply. Where will they get the extra batteries from? We're talking about potentially a massive extra amount required. Well, that's funny, as we're seeing this enormous new CATL factory being built currently, supposedly with a capacity of 80 gigawatt hours a year, according to Ning Times Shanghai. And supposedly for Tesla, I mean, who else could take enough cells to build over 1 million extra vehicles a year? So it's obviously going to be for Tesla. Now, I've been wondering where all these cells will be going. We were actually told that Tesla would build a new factory in Shanghai. However, we expected them to start that earlier this year, and there appears to be no signs of that yet. This, however, would make sense as to where these cells are earmarked. I often try and look for coincidences, as I find they often help make sense. Have we been so distracted with Tesla's growth with 4680 cells that we've forgotten all about LFP, despite Elon telling us things like 2/3 of Teslas will have iron cathodes in the future? Sure, 4680s are lower cost and get US subsidies, but LFP is still a low-cost cell, especially at this scale. And this is highly possible that this is CATL's new M3P cell, which has a higher energy density than LFP. Tesla are focusing on 4680 cells at the moment and don't have time to start their own LFP production line, as they have barely gotten very far with the 4680 ramp as it is. One thing at a time. And 4680 cells are vastly more profitable, as they can go into long-range vehicles, which sell for much higher prices. And the cost of Tesla's 4680 cells are already low enough. And Elon keeps saying to all the battery suppliers he wants them to keep ramping, and he will buy all the cells and batteries they can make. Therefore, Tesla can potentially offer a lower cost Model 3, and I would say still generating the same gross profit as they do now. I said same gross profit, not same gross profit margin. In other words, Tesla may reduce the cost of building a Model 3 by perhaps $5,000. Then, if they reduce the price by $5,000, the gross profit per vehicle would remain the same. All that would have changed is the demand for a lower cost Model 3 would increase. And we have the Model Y coming out with 4680 cells. We already saw them being sold for $60,000, so possibly the price will be around that too, meaning Tesla can offer lower price variants to not only weather the storm, but potentially see tremendous growth through it. The future of this industry is obviously more cell production at lower costs and higher energy density, similar to how microchips are. They keep getting better. Sure, not quite at Moore's law. Also, it won't just be the lower cost that increases supply, an updated design too, just like how the S and X refresh increased demand. And if it has a structural battery pack, then it should handle better and be lighter. It should simply be a better car all around. Even if production for the Model 3 reached 1 million in Shanghai, then they could still likely sell every car they make. Although I think Tesla will need to work more on logistics here, as the China domestic market won't be big enough. And maybe that is the actual bottleneck. And perhaps Berlin will have a new Model 3 factory there too. And we're hearing about shipping prices reducing, and thus exporting costs reducing for Tesla. We're still suffering from COVID-related supply chain issues and China lockdowns, but we'd expect this to eventually come to an end, and logistics becoming less of a limiting factor for Tesla. I know it's not as easy to get excited in these times. Just remember though, this is Tesla, and anything can happen out of the blue. We don't get told a lot of their plans, they just happen. Tesla don't try and sell us on their future to pump the stock. We don't get told how amazing they're going to be for the company or profits. We have to work it all out for ourselves. There's always hope for this company, even in a down market. And if Tesla can start making lower cost vehicles with all the associated savings over an ICE car, then they could still do very well during these potential economic times. I'm not saying the stock price will bounce back to all-time highs. I'm saying Tesla could still potentially have a strong business even during the bad times. It's about getting through these kind of times to make it big. All I'm saying is there's still plenty of hope for Tesla. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.